I was kneeling beside the broken bicycle behind our water tank when I heard my brother shout my name from inside the house. My heart jumped out of my body. The front wheel of his bicycle was bent like it wanted to fall off completely, and the tire was already flat on the ground. My hands were shaking. I kept touching the bent rim like touching it would make it stand straight. That was the moment I knew I was in real trouble, the kind that enters your stomach and refuses to leave. I wanted to run away, but where would I run to when the bicycle was still lying there like a caught thief? Before that moment, everything felt simple. That morning had started like any other Saturday. Emeka rushed out early with his small bag because he had work at the pharmacy. He did not take the bicycle because the boss sent someone to pick him up. Once he left, the whole compound felt free and open. I kept looking at the blue bicycle where it leaned on the wall like it was calling my name. I had been thinking of riding it for weeks, especially since Amara on our street kept laughing at my small legs whenever she rode her own bicycle past me. Today felt like the day I would finally show her that I could ride something better. I told myself I would not ride far, just to the junction and back. I dragged the bicycle quietly out of the gate so that Mama would not hear the rolling sound from the sitting room where she was washing plates. The sun was bright, the road was free, and the breeze started blowing on my face as soon as I started pedaling. It felt like the whole world opened for me. I began to smile and move faster. I even imagined myself showing off to the boys at the football field. I forgot fear. I forgot everything. Then the pothole came. I did not even see it. One moment I was flying like a hero. The next moment I heard a loud crack, and the bicycle jumped like it was trying to throw me away. My body hit the handle, and the bicycle slammed hard on the road. Before I could stand up, the front wheel was already leaning to the side in a strange way. My legs were shaking as I tried to lift the bicycle. People were looking at me, asking if I was all right. I just nodded and pushed the bicycle home with tears burning my eyes. My heart was beating louder than my steps. By the time I reached our compound, sweat had already soaked my back. I hid the bicycle behind the tank, praying that maybe God would straighten the wheel before Emeka returned. I kept touching the bent metal as if it would magically fix itself. That was when I heard Emeka's voice calling my name from the house, even though he was not supposed to be back yet. My whole body froze. I did not know if I should run or cry or beg. All I knew was that my life had just changed, and there was no hiding from it anymore. When I heard Emeka calling my name, I felt like the ground under me wanted to open and swallow me. I quietly pushed the bicycle deeper behind the tank and wiped my hands on my shorts even though they were shaking. I walked slowly into the house, trying to act normal. Emeka was standing in the sitting room with his bag on his shoulder, looking tired like someone who had been running since morning. He said he forgot an important paper and came back to pick it. I just nodded and kept my eyes on the floor so he would not see the fear written all over my face. He went straight to his room, and I waited for the sound of him closing the door. As soon as I heard the lock click, I tiptoed out again. My heart was beating so fast it sounded like a drum inside my ears. I rushed back to the bicycle, touched the bent wheel again, and told myself that I could fix this before he left the house a second time. I did not know how I would do it, but I felt I had to try. If he found out now, I did not know what he would do to me. I feared he would be angry in a way I had never seen before. I dragged the bicycle out of the compound again, this time not caring if Mama heard me or not. Mama had gone inside to rest, and the whole place was quiet. When I stepped onto the dusty road, I turned left toward the mechanic street, even though my legs felt weak. The sun was hotter now, and the bicycle felt heavier than before. I kept pushing it, praying in my heart that one of the repairmen would tell me that fixing it was easy and cheap. When I reached the first mechanic, he bent down, looked at the wheel, and shook his head slowly. He said the rim was badly bent and I would have to change it completely. He told me the price, and my stomach tightened. I did not have that kind of money. I only had 2,000 naira inside my saving tin, and even that one I had been saving for months. I left him and pushed the bicycle to another repairer. The next one said almost the same thing. One even said the frame was slightly bent and needed straightening with heat. I felt like crying again. I sat on the ground beside the bicycle and rubbed my face with my hands. People were passing and looking at me like a lost child, but I did not care. All I wanted was a solution. I kept thinking of Emeka shouting my name earlier, and the way his eyes always changed when he was upset. I imagined him coming outside to look for the bicycle, not finding it, and then calling me. I imagined him shouting at me or telling Mama what I had done. The fear pushed me up to my feet again. I told myself that if I could not pay the mechanics, then maybe I should get money the only other way I knew. I pushed the bicycle back home, making sure to avoid all the shops where adults like to gossip. When I reached the compound, I hid the bicycle beside the tank again and went straight to Emeka's small wooden locker. My hand was shaking as I touched the lock. I had never opened it before, but I had seen him close it enough times to know how it worked. The moment the lock opened, my heart almost burst out of my chest. I looked inside, expecting to see coins or small change. Instead, I saw an envelope thick with money. Beside it was a folded letter. I picked it up slowly, not knowing that what I was about to read would change everything I thought I knew about Emeka. I stood there staring at the words, feeling the whole world go quiet around me. I did not even hear the sound of footsteps outside or the soft knock that came to the door. All I knew was that the bicycle was no longer my biggest problem. Something bigger, something heavier was waiting for me, and I did not even know how to carry it. I held the letter with both hands, reading every line slowly, even though my eyes were shaking. It was from a polytechnic in another state. They were telling Emeka that he had been admitted to study electrical engineering. They said he should come with his registration fee and his documents. I read it again and again until the letters started to dance in my eyes. I did not know when my mouth opened in surprise. Emeka had never told me anything about school. He always said he was fine working at the pharmacy. He always said he did not want Mama to stress herself. So why did he hide this? I looked at the big envelope full of money and understood immediately. That was his school savings. That was why he always came home tired. That was why he kept counting money at night when he thought everybody was asleep. He was planning something important for himself, something big, and he was carrying the weight alone. My chest felt heavy as I stood there staring at the locker. The room felt small, like the walls were moving closer to me. I put the letter back inside the locker and closed it quietly. My whole body was hot. I sat on the bed and held my head. The bicycle problem was still there, but now it had become something worse. If I used any of that money to fix the bicycle, I would be taking from his future. I would be spoiling something bigger than a bent rim. I would be spoiling his dream. The thought made tears rise in my eyes again. Just then I heard footsteps in the corridor. I jumped and wiped my face with my hands. I stood up quickly, pretending I was just passing through the room. The footsteps passed the door and continued to the kitchen, and I breathed out slowly. I walked outside to the backyard and looked at the bicycle behind the tank again. The wheel was still bent, the tire still flat. Nothing had changed. I wished someone would appear from the sky and say they would fix it for me. I wished the accident had never happened. But wishing was useless. I sat beside the bicycle and tried to think. The sun was going down, and the compound was getting quieter. I knew I had to fix the bicycle before night, or everything would scatter. I picked up the wheel and tried to straighten it with my hands, but the metal was too strong. I pressed harder until my fingers hurt. Nothing moved. After a while, I stood up and walked around the compound. I needed air. My mind was spinning. If I told the truth now, Emeka would be angry. But if I tried to fix the bicycle myself, I would spoil it more. If I opened his locker again to take money, that one would destroy everything between us. I kept walking around like someone chasing his own shadow. Then I remembered something. There was an old repairman behind the market who fixed bicycles very cheaply. People said he was slow but honest. Maybe he would agree to fix the wheel small by small, or maybe he would understand that I did not have plenty money. I felt a small light in my chest. I ran back to the bicycle, held the bars tight, and started pushing it out of the backyard again. By the time I reached the market junction, the sky was already turning orange. My shirt was soaked with sweat. I kept pushing the bicycle along the narrow path until I reached the small shed where the old repairman stayed. His tools were scattered everywhere, and he was sitting on a wooden stool drinking water from a bottle. When he saw me, he looked at the bicycle and shook his head like he already knew why I came. He asked me to bring it closer. I pushed it to him and stepped back, waiting for what he would say. He bent down, touched the wheel, and pressed the rim gently. Then he looked up at me with eyes that were kind but serious. I waited, hoping he would tell me something good, something easy. But instead, he said the one thing that made my heart fall into my stomach. He said the bicycle could be fixed, yes, but it would not be cheap, and it would not be fast. He said I needed patience, I needed time, I needed money, none of which I had. I stood there with dust on my legs and fear in my chest, knowing that night was coming fast, and that Emeka would soon find out everything. I stood in front of the old repairman, feeling like the whole world was pressing on my shoulders. When he told me the bicycle would not be cheap or fast to fix, my throat became tight. I asked him if he could just straighten the wheel a little so it would look normal. He said he could try, but it would still cost more than the money I had. I brought out my small 2,000 naira and stretched it to him. He looked at the money, then looked at me, then shook his head slowly. I felt my eyes getting wet, so I quickly turned my face away. I did not want him to see me cry. I pushed the bicycle out of his workshop and stood beside a small mango tree behind the market. People were closing their shops and going home. I watched them move around with their baskets and buckets and felt small. I kept thinking of the letter in Emeka's locker. I kept thinking of the bent wheel. I kept thinking of the way Emeka shouted my name earlier. Everything was mixing inside my head like hot water and cold water fighting. After standing there for some minutes, I knew I had to go home. Night was coming fast. I started pushing the bicycle again, the tire dragging on the sand and making a soft scratching sound. My chest was hurting, but I kept moving. I prayed that maybe Emeka would stay in his room till late, or maybe Mama would send him on an errand far away. Anything that would give me more time. When I reached our compound, the whole place was quiet. The yellow bulb outside was already on. I checked the window of Emeka's room. The light was off. Maybe he had gone out again. That small hope pushed me to hide the bicycle behind the tank once more. I covered it with an old sack and dusted my hands like that would hide the guilt too. I went inside the house and saw Mama in the kitchen frying plantain. She asked me where I had been. I said I was playing outside. She told me to wash my hands and help set the table. My legs felt weak, but I walked to the sink. I kept expecting Emeka to walk in and shout my name again. I kept expecting him to ask for the bicycle, but he did not come out. He did not say anything. When we sat to eat, his door was still closed. I kept looking at it. Mama noticed and asked if I was okay. I just nodded and chewed my food without tasting anything. I finished eating quickly and went to the backyard to breathe. The sky was dark now. The air was cooler. I sat on the plastic chair near the tank and held my head with both hands. That was when I heard his door open. The sound was small, but it felt like thunder in my ears. Footsteps came closer. I held my breath. I closed my eyes. I did not know if I should run or stay. I heard the footsteps stop near me, then Emeka sat down on the chair beside mine. He did not talk at first. He just sat there, breathing slowly, like he was thinking about something deep. After a while, he asked me if anything was wrong. His voice was calm, but that calm scared me more than shouting. I said I was fine. He kept looking at me, waiting. My hands were shaking on my lap. My heart was beating too fast. He asked me again, this time not loudly, but with a kind of gentle force that made my chest hot. I wanted to tell him the truth right there. I wanted to say everything, but the words refused to come out. My mouth felt heavy. My eyes felt full. I kept looking at the ground. Then he stood up slowly and started walking toward the back of the tank. My heart stopped. I jumped up from the chair and ran in front of him, blocking his way without even thinking. He looked confused. He asked me what I was doing. I opened my mouth to speak, but the words were shaking too much. Before I could stop myself, I started crying. My whole body bent like a fold. I kept trying to talk, but the tears were coming too fast. Emeka held my shoulder and kept asking me what happened. He looked worried now, not angry. I wanted to tell him. I wanted to confess. But just as I opened my mouth, Mama called both of us from inside the house. The moment broke, and Emeka turned toward the door. I stood there in the dark, crying quietly, knowing that the truth was still waiting behind that tank, and soon, very soon, it would come out, whether I was ready or not. After Mama called us, Emeka walked inside and I followed slowly, wiping my face with the back of my hand. Mama wanted us to help pack some things into the store. Emeka carried 2 heavy bags while I picked the lighter ones. The whole time my chest was still shaking. I kept thinking of the bicycle outside, the broken wheel hiding behind the tank, and how Emeka was only 1 step away from finding it. Everything around me felt louder than normal. Like even the plates and buckets were watching me. When we finished packing the things, Mama thanked us and went to the parlor. Emeka turned to go back to his room, but I stood near the store door, breathing fast. I knew I had to tell him before he found out by himself. I knew it was time. My legs carried me to his room, even though my mind wanted to run away. I stood at his door and knocked softly. When he opened it, he looked surprised to see me there. He asked if I was feeling better than earlier outside. His voice was calm again. I entered the room and stood near his bed. I could not look him in the eyes. I started talking with a small, shaking voice. I told him I wanted to say something important. I told him I wanted him to please not get angry. He frowned a little, but told me to go ahead. I told him everything. I told him how I took the bicycle without asking, how I rode it out of the compound, how I hit the pothole and spoiled the wheel, how I pushed it all around town looking for someone to fix it, how I did not have enough money. I told him about going into his locker. I told him about the letter, the admission, the envelope of money. I told him I was not trying to steal. I was only trying to save the bicycle before he returned. The whole time he just stood still with his hands on his waist. His face did not move. He did not shout. He did not talk. He did not interrupt. He just looked at me with eyes I could not understand. When I finished talking, I started crying again. My whole body felt empty, like I had poured everything out on the floor. He took a long breath and sat on the edge of the bed. He did not look angry anymore. He looked tired, very tired. He said he was not angry because of the bicycle. He said bicycles could be fixed. He said what pained him most was that I carried all that fear alone, walking around town in the sun like someone with no big brother. He said I could have told him from the beginning. He also said he did not tell Mama or me about the admission because he was still saving the money and did not want anybody to worry. When he said those words, my tears came back again. But this time they were soft tears, not heavy ones. He stood up and told me to come with him. We walked out into the backyard together. When we reached behind the tank, he pulled off the sack covering the bicycle. He bent and touched the wheel, turning it slowly. I expected him to shout now, but he did not. He just nodded like he already knew this moment would come. He told me we would fix the bicycle together. He said he would take it to the workshop in the morning and speak with the repairman himself. He also told me he would find a way to still pay his school fees. He said I did not destroy his future. He said his future was bigger than a bent rim. Then something happened I did not expect. He placed his hand on my shoulder and pulled me into a small hug. It was not long. It was not tight. But it was the kind of hug that made something warm open inside my chest. For the first time since the accident, I felt like I could breathe again. The next morning, we carried the bicycle to a proper workshop near the bus stop. The man checked it and told us he could fix it. Emeka paid part of the money that day and told the man he would complete it later. I promised Emeka that I would help him with anything he needed, even if it was carrying loads from the pharmacy or running errands after school. As we walked home, he said something I will never forget. He said everybody makes mistakes, but what matters is facing them and learning from them. He said that was what growing up meant. I looked at him and felt proud. Not the kind of proud that comes from riding a bicycle in front of Amara or the boys in the field. A different kind, a deeper kind. And that was how a broken bicycle showed me who my brother really was, and who I wanted to become too.